Good day everyone, we are the Group 8 and our topic is all about BPO infrastructure, consideration and challenges. So before we start, I would like to introduce you my group. I am Renilyn P. Agulay and my members are Mary Joy Belmonte, Michelle Katapang, Ayesa Janica Luto, Marjeline Salcedo, and Edsel Satyada. So BPO infrastructure consideration and challenges. So there are many infrastructure issues which must be managed during the transition and operating phases of BPO life cycle. So these issues are divided into following section. First is hardware infrastructure. Second is software infrastructure. Third is knowledge infrastructure. And last is training and support infrastructure. So let us hear about hardware infrastructure. So here is Mr. Edsel Satyada to start the report.
Hey everyone, I'm John Zilby Sachada. Today, I will be discussing the hardware infrastructure under the BPO infrastructure challenges and considerations. First issue is need to consider in hardware infrastructure underlying the BPO project of whose systems to use. There are also three critical considerations regarding with the decisions of whose systems to use. First is the intent of the BPO agreement. Second is the buyer's interest in developing and retaining new capacities. Third is the location of the systems. So, what is the BPO agreement? A business process outsourcing or BPO agreement is a legal contract between a company and an external service provider to take over an essential yet non-core part of the client company's business. These business processes or functionality being outsourced should not be a core value proposition. BPO find its roots in the manufacturing industry where companies hire a vendor to handle parts of their supply chain. However, over time, other industries have joined the league as well. Today, some of the common businesses process outsourced include human resources accounting, customer service and call centers, information technology, management and services. So, what's better than acquiring one new customer? It sounds like trick questions, but the answer isn't acquiring two customers. It's actually retaining an existing customer. While there's a certain allure that comes with capturing new customers, keeping customers coming back will continually result in a greater ROI. But how do you create a customer retention strategy that keeps your current customers engaged and happy? We've broken down some of the most applicable customer retention strategies that the biggest brands are currently using to inspire loyalty. From leveraging convenience to prioritizing personalizations, we cover all the most haves that any customer success or marketing team can test out today. Second bullet, buyer and vendor must also consider other factors when determining whether to shift process to the vendor's hardware. So dito naman is yung customer and yung may-ari ay nakakaapekto sa business ng may-ari. Like for example is masama yung ugali ng vendor or may-ari. Syempre, sa iba ka bibili. Gets? Eh di maaapektuhan yung business mo. Third bullet is the gap between buyer and vendor on software maturity. The greater will be the challenges in data exchange. So, dito naman is, syempre if di kayo same ng customer mo, mahihirapan ka. Like for example, di ba most of matatanda ngayon is nahihirapan gumamit ng gadgets or cellphone, tas business mo is online. So, mahihirapan silang mag-adapt. Example natin dito is yung sa MS Word na lang. If yung Word file na ginamit mo sa MS Word is nung 2007 pa, then ipinas mo sa teacher mo na ang gamit is MS Word 2020. So, mag-iiba na sila ng format. Fourth bullet is in the case firm is outsourcing to save the cost, the firm should use the vendor system. Dito naman is same lang sila ng meaning nung third bullet and differences. Parehas lang din naman silang web-based, parang call center. And lastly, the last bullet is if the vendor is offshore, the buyer needs to assess the vendor ability to provide technical support. So dito naman, need syempre i-check ng customers if safe ba and maganda ang technical support ng business. Kasi bawat bansa is may iba't ibang security system. To continue, the discussion of the hardware infrastructure would be discussed by Salcedo Marjelin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Satayda. Good day, ma'am and classmates. I am Marjeline Salcedo, and I'm the next presenter of this presentation. For the next bullet, the infrastructure of both buyer and the vendor needs to review to assess their compatibility. It simply means that yung infrastruktura daw ng mga mamimili at ng vendor ay kailangan suriin ng mabuti para daw malaman kung sila ay compatible to each other. A system architecture refers to the configuration of its components. On the other hand, it also refers to the conceptual model that defines the structure, behavior, and the view of a system. Ito naman yung tumutukoy sa mismong istruktura, kilos or gawi or pananaw ng mismong system. The IT resource audit will enable the project management team to assess the security issues. Ito naman yung magbibigay daan upang mapamahala o masuri natin yung mga security issues. There is need to conduct an infrastructure and architecture audit for us to be able to imply the following. The first one is avoid needless duplication of services or system. Second, pinpoint the gaps in infrastructure capability. Ensure infrastructure or business alignment. Ensure adequate scope of information technology components to accommodate service enhancement. Assess security issues associated with data and knowledge sharing over network. Lastly, re-engineer processes that are obviously inefficient or anachronistic. For the next slide, BPO buyer should ask how scalable is the infrastructure to the vendor. It is because it will help if you clearly define the scope and your intended outcome. And scaling your business is used frequently in business. But it can have different meanings depending on the context it is being used in. When a business is able to scale their operations, this means that they are able to handle a growing amount of works or sales in a capable, cost-effective manner. Lastly, BPO project managers should be aware of the difficulties that are often encountered when the two database attempt to connect. Ibig sabihin lang nito na yung tagapamahala ng BPO projects ay dapat maging aware o magkaroon ng kamalayan sa mga possible difficulties na kadalasang nararanasan na kapag ang dalawang database ay nag-connect. That's all. Thank you. Next reporter will be Miss Belmonte.
Thank you, Ms. Salcedo. Again, I am Mary J. Belmontes. So, ang next infrastructure considerations and challenges of BPO is software infrastructure. Software infrastructure dito naman is sort of enterprise software or program designed to assist businesses with basic tasks including worker assistance, company transactions, internal services, and processes. Halimbawa nito ay networking, operating system na para ma-provide ang services to make use ng hardware, databases, monitoring, at marami pang iba. Nandito rin yung sinasabi na the greater the distance sa pagitan ng client and commercial software maturity ay nagiging mas difficult ang database integration and data exchange. Kaya it is appropriate to put the burden of database integration sa provider. At dito rin po nakasaad na ang client is likely to bear some of the cost kapag ginagamit itong software. Kung kaya't, ang software compatibility is frequently a problematic issue in a way na when attempting to match buyer and vendor applications in BPO arrangement is complicated kaya nagkakaroon ng mga compatibility difficulties. Kasama rin po dito na ang data exchange is foundation of most BPO projects. Kaya ang database concerns will arise in practically every BPO connection. Ang databases nga po kasi is any collection ng data or information especially organized for rapid search and retrieval. Ito ay yung structured to facilitate storage, modification, and deletion of data in conjunction with various data processing operations. So yan po. May 4 dito na tumutukoy sa software infrastructure. First is BPO project managers should be aware of the difficulties that are often encountered when the two databases attempt to connect. Ibig sabihin po, organizations that use BPO to improve their service levels na kabaliktaran, in those looking sa simple cost savings are more likely to run into problems kasi ang kanilang internal systems ay maaaring mahuli sa mga latest technology upgrades. However, BPO vendor has chosen to focus on the specific business process bilang core business competence and is likely to be current in its software infrastructure kasama yung mga database systems nito. Dito rin po papasok yung sinabi ko kanina na the greater the gap between buyer and vendor software maturity, the greater the challenges in database integration and data sharing. Ibig sabihin po, it is reasonable if not expected na ang burden will be on the vendor to manage database integration at ang cost is likely to be carried at least in part by the buyer. In addition po, another key difficulty tungkol sa data and information sharing and publication is focuses on getting the buyer and vendor system to communicate with one another. During sa operating phase kasi ng BPO is nagsasagawa ang vendor ng service-related transactions that generate new business data and information. Yung information dito ay for use by others in the buyer and vendor organization na must be transmitted to appropriate databases and presented to relevant devices. So, through sa pag-analysis of data flows ay required to ensure at a minimum para yung mga tao na kailangan ang generated information sa pamamagitan ng outsourced transactions ay continue to receive it pa rin in a familiar format at the right time. Then second po is the BPO buyer need to be conscious of the hidden potential in transaction information. Meaning na ang naka-stored sa isang data warehouse ay not destined for immediate additional processing. Ang data extraction dito ay refers to the process of analyzing sa mga collected data ng isang organization na hindi immediately delayed para sa additional processing. This data nga po kasi are stored sa data warehouse nga at kadalasang naglalaman ng mga insights sa mga customers and competitors na that would be otherwise have gone unnoticed. Dapat din po ang BPO buyer should make sure that vendor captures and saves all transactional data that can be used for strategic insights afterwards. Third po is once the database's connectivity has been established between the databases, their respective software application must be able to communicate. Dito naman po is maaaring magdulot ng problem if mayroong mga large number of applications kasi many of them will not recognize one another. And fourth po is if two software systems are unable to communicate, then a third-party piece of software known as middleware needs to be used. Kasi po, middleware is a data Tor network na kung saan software acts as a data translator between two incompatible apps, allowing them to communicate. Yun lamang po. Maraming salamat. So for the next reporter po, here is Miss Luto to continue.
Thank you, Ms. Belmonte. To continue the report, our topic together with Ms. Agulay is knowledge infrastructure. We must know that the data and information infrastructure is an essential part of any BPO relationship. Most of the competitive businesses are data-driven, and in many cases, a large part of their overall value is derived from the industry and market data that they have been collected, stored, and analyzed. Knowledge infrastructure has many definitions and functions. First, knowledge infrastructure refers to the practical application of the analyzed data and information. Meaning, from the definition itself, as you have known an information, you must be ready to apply it in an actual situation. Second, knowledge means the analyzed and applied information that helps organization to complete and grow. In any cases, knowledge is a must to start a plan. You must have an initial information before you get to a conclusion. As you have an information, analyzing what you should do next and applying your plans will have a big impact to the business, grow, and complete step. Third, knowledge generated by the analysis of aggregate transaction. Aggregate means to collect or gather into a mass or whole data. In this definition, collecting and complying information or knowledge is a must-do to analyze it clearly. Fourth, the knowledge output from an analytical software application may be distributed to multiple databases. A knowledge came from an analytical software application can be spread to a lot or many databases if needed. Fifth, outsourcing a business process ensures that the firm does not have to be exposed the raw data. Raw data, also known as the primary data or the initial data, a data that is collected from the actual. In this function, meaning the outsourcing must protect the raw data and must treat it as a confidential data. 6. The outsourcing vendor can generate the knowledge that is generated by the internal employees. Outsourcing vendor is an approach that enables a firm research or get services from various vendors, hence ensuring service deliverability. In this bullet, it means outsourcing vendors can also have the knowledge the same as the internal employees. 7. The knowledge infrastructure of a BPO project should include the cross-enterprise knowledge management. Lastly, maintaining the integrity of the information means the shared information does not get corrupted or reconfigured. It means that the employee must be trained well to be knowledgeable enough that the information from the top must be the same information always as it goes down. So that's all for my report. For the next reporter and to report half of mine, let me call on Miss Agulay. Thank you.
So, to continue, when entering into an outsourcing partnership, the two organizations become one. So, to have a good relationship or better outsourcing project, they must be transparent with each other. Sometimes, when the two systems are situated in different location or separate locations, so madalas ang nagiging problema or issue is all about the security system. So, the BPO vendors should give BPO buyers an assurance na they will follow what they've been agreed of. So, kadalasan ang BPO buyers and vendors is communicate via internet. So, the outsourcing partnership should review their internet policy or internet security policy. So this what should be the BPO buyers keep in mind about the internet security policies. First is limit access. Many security breaches came from within an organization. Thus, the fewer people with access to the inner workings of the system, the better. So, from the word itself na limit or may limitasyon, so kailangan may limit ang bilang ng tao or personnel sa pag-access ng system or ng mga data. Kasi once na madami ang umahawak ng system sa loob ng organization, so maaaring magkaroon ng problema like hacking and data breaches na nagagamit na sa ibang paraan o sa maling paraan. So, kailangan more on ang nakakaalam or ang may access sa mga data or sa mga system is more on sa mga internal personnel lamang. So, fewer access in security system is better and safe. Next is establishing granting privileges. A rigorous procedure should be in place for granting and revoking rights of access. And granting privileges should be recorded and made available to both client and BPO partners. So, sa pagkakaroon o paglalatag ng mga policies, it should be fair and available sa both parties, and it should be agreed upon by formal agreement. So, sa pagkakaroon ng karapatan sa access ng systems, dapat pabor sa lahat ang nakalatag na policies. And if dumating yung time na aalisin na or ang napagkasunduan ng alisin ang ibang policies, dapat wala itong malaking maaapektuhan. And kung nabuo ang policies by agreement ng both parties, dapat sa pag-alis nito is napagkasunduan din or approved by both parties. Next is streamline hardware and software between the two organizations. Complex systems are more open to attack. In using hardware and software system should be properly handled while operating an activity. And using hardware and software system should stick into security practices or policies to avoid a complex system while operating, because attack on a system carried a vulnerabilities that led to susceptible hacking. So, it is a complex and massive if once na ma-hack ang system. So, the personnel or the organizations or the partnership or outsourcing partnership operate the hardware and software should handle carefully and efficiently to avoid complex problem. Next is to develop a secure password policies. These should include not allowing users to choose simple or obvious password. So, alam naman natin sa panahon ngayon, marami ng mga hackers. May mga good and bad hackers. So, they hack the system and ginagamit nila sa maling paraan, which is ito yung mga bad hackers. So, for example na lang is sa Facebook app, which is this app is madaling ma-hack at magaling ang mga hackers ngayon if ang sinet mong password or ginamit mong password is simple lang, so they will have an access on your account already. So to avoid these circumstances, we should set a password na talagang mahirap at imposibleng malaman agad ng mga hackers. So the organizations should set these policies na kailangan ay mahirap at hindi masyadong obvious ang mga password. So, and also remember na dapat kakaunti lang ang nakakaalam. Just like earlier sa limited access. Kasi kahit gaano pa kahirap ang naset mong password sa system, if madami naman ang nakakaalam or madami naman ang may access, so malaki din ang chance na mababaliwala din ang paglalagay mo ng mahirap na passwords o yung pagsaset mo ng password. So, set difficult password in a system and always remember na may limitasyon ang pag-access nito. Next is have backup and emergency procedures in place before going live. This should include data backup, disaster recovery, responding to security breaches, and identifying those actions to be taken in the event of breach. So, fifth is having a backup and emergency procedure. So, having a backup is a usual thing na ginagawa ng mga business organizations. So, ito ay nagagamit once na ang system ay magkaroon ng failure while operating or when executing a project, lalo na kung ang system na ginagamit ng isang organization is bagong build up pa lang or bagong discover pa lang. So, malaki ang chance na may system failure and lead to data breaches. So, having backup help to restore the data from the system failure, and it is an essential in organization. And last is implement an external audit. Security policies should be audited by an external professional organization which should be on call if major breach occurs. So, bakit nga ba nagkakaroon ng security audit? So, ginagawa ito to ensure that the security of the system are handled properly. Kaya madalas ang nagkakandak nito ng audit ay ang mga external. Mahalaga na magkaroon ng ganitong policy para makita o malaman ng both parties kung may problema or anomalya na nangyayari inside the organizations or inside the partnership or outsourcing partnership. At para din hindi maging bias ang pagkakandak ng audit, so dapat ang external ang gumagawa o professional external auditor ang gumagawa. And this audit is performed to identify kung may security problems and unnecessary resources. So these policies help to protect critical data and ensure that they stick to security practices. So, this is for the knowledge infrastructure, and to report the training and support infrastructure here is Miss Michelle Katapa.
Thank you, Ms. Agulay. So the last one is the training and support infrastructure. Most of the problems employees will experience during a project will be unrelated to the hardware or software infrastructure associated with BPO. They will be more likely related to failures in understanding new workflows, work procedures, and work responsibilities. So kaya nagkakaroon ng problema sa isang company, hindi lang dahil sa hardware or software infrastructure, kundi dahil kulang din sa kaalaman yung mga employees. Of course, changes happens continuously, right? So every single days or week or month may pagbabago, and that's when the challenges occur. Kasi hindi agad nakaka-adapt sa new systems ang tao, and they fail to understand yung changes sa workflow and work procedures na ginagawa nila, and hindi nila nagagawa ng maayos yung work responsibilities nila kasi nga hindi sila prepared, and there's a lack of training and support ng isang company or ng isang organization. To avoid some of the problems that arise from process-related changes and to ensure a smooth transition to the new system, training should be provided to everyone, even those who are adamant they do that need to be trained. So para maiwasan yung mga ganong conflict, dapat lahat ng employees is mag-undergo ng training. Kahit pa yung mga employees na magagaling na or very flexible na talaga. Kasi in every training sessions, may bago tayong natututunan. And sa bawat experience na yon, laging may new lessons na very helpful para mas maging productive tayo and mas maging efficient employee. In developing a BPO-related training and support, there are factors that organizations need to consider. So the first one is developing a clear set of standard operating procedures, or what we call the SOPs. So SOP is a set of written instructions. Nakalagay dito yung mga step-by-step process na dapat gawin para ma-perform ng maayos yung mga routine activities ng company. Also, nakalagay din dito yung mga policies and standards na kailangan para mas maging successful yung isang company. And SOP's development creates a positive sense of teamwork. At kapag may teamwork, of course, it will lead to improving the efficiency and profitability ng isang company. And pwede din siyang mag-reduce ng errors, kaya mahalaga talaga na pagtuunan siya ng pansin. The second one is the training programs in a BPO should revolve around SOPs. So meaning, dapat yung training program natin is nakabase sa ating SOPs. Kasi ito yung mag-guide sa employee para ma-perform ng maayos at maging smooth lang yung pagsasagawa ng specific task. So most likely, kapag sa mga trainings, may binibigay silang documents sa employees and yun yung dapat pag-aralan at intindihin kasi andun yung mga basics. Kumbaga, si SOPs yung magsaserve as training guide para ma-maintain yung consistency and quality ng work all throughout the business operations. So the third one is the training should be designed in a modular fashion. So when we say modular fashion, the system can be exchanged, added, removed, and rearranged. So in short, customizable and flexible. So in terms of training naman, dapat matuto ang employees kung paano maging flexible. Dapat yung matututunan nila is hindi lang sa isang bagay pwedeng i-apply. Dapat all around. So for example, yung solution sa isang problema is dapat pwede ring i-reapply sa iba pang areas. Kumbaga, dapat maituro sa employees kung paano i-approach ang isang bagay without having to restructure everything and andun pa din yung consistency and quality ng work nila. The fourth one, conducting multiple training sessions. So para mas maging effective yung employee, hindi sapat na isang beses lang i-train or dalawa. So as long as tingin mo they should have to train, edi i-train, pero dapat ibabalance natin kasi masyadong costly din ang training. Kung iisipin natin, parang investment na din siya kasi syempre yung kapalit naman ng training na yon is yung pagiging productive and efficient ng mga employees, which is very essential para mas ma-improve yung performance ng ating company. And then the number 5, train while working alongside employees during their workday. So meaning, the employee is nag-undergo ng training while contributing to the organization. Mas nagiging expert kasi ang employee kapag ganito yung scenario kasi it allows them to learn while integrating into their everyday work environment. Number 6, when answering questions, always refer back to the SOP. So like what I have said earlier, SOP will serve as our guide to understand everything about sa procedures and policies ng organization. Kung may hindi tayo maintindihan, balikan lang natin si SOPs at intindihin ulit para masiguro na tama ang gagawin natin or ginagawa natin and para maiwasan yung pagkakamali. And then the number 7, final training should be completed after 60 days for refresher. So very understandable. Yung mga baguhan or freshies pa lang is dapat mag-undergo ng training for 60 days. So dapat as a new employee, give your best para ma-prove sa boss mo na she made the right decision na i-hire ka niya. And then the last one, not taking training lightly. So marami kasi sa employees iniisip, ay training lang yan, ganyan-ganyan. Kumbaga din nila sinaseryoso. Tapos may mga organizations naman na nine-neglect ang pagbibigay ng training and support kasi nga for them, gastos lang yun, which is very wrong. Ang training is hindi lang naman siya basta matuto lang, di ba? Great opportunity din siya para mag-grow yung knowledge natin and ma-improve pa yung job skills natin para mas maging effective employee pa tayo. And kapag na-reach ng company yung objective ng training program nila, sino ba ang magbe-benefit, di ba? Of course, yung company. Kaya dapat hindi siya binabaliwala. Instead, mag-invest para doon. So, that's the end of our presentation. I hope may natutunan kayo from this lecture. So, take care everyone and have a great day. Thank you.